Well, less than 48 hours after the U.S. captured Nicolas Maduro, President Donald Trump made similar threats against the leader of Colombia.
He's not going to be doing it very
So there will be an operation by the U.S.
It sounds good to me. Yeah. You know why? Because they kill a lot of people.
I'm joined now by Francisco Santos Calderón, former Vice President of Colombia. Sir, it's good to see you. Thank you for being here today.
Thank you very much.
How seriously do you take Donald Trump's comments there, perceived as threats against your country?
Not as an immediate threat, because I think he has other problems that he's looking into. But I think he has one thing that in which he's right. The drug traffickers have had the best success in this government or in this administration, Petro's administration, than ever before. Hectares of coca went from 200,000 to 300,000. Exports of cocaine went from 1,600 metric tons to more than 2,600 metric tons. The control of territory has increased dramatically by those organized crimes, including ELN, FARC, Cartel del Golfo, etc. They have become a bigger and bigger and bigger threat. And now he wants, in his peace process, the Paz Total, as he calls it, to give more than 100 municipalities to the drug traffickers that, by the way, he took them out of jail and sent them to a meeting that he was having,
right,
in which you say, what the hell's happening here? So he's at least in cahoots with them, and I think he's going to have to pay for it afterwards, especially when they look at what all the information that is going to come out of Venezuela that works like that with all of the drug traffickers of the region.
But is that an issue for the President of the United States to settle, or is that an issue for the people of Colombia to settle? Because as President Petro responded today saying, if you detain a president whom much of my people want and respect, you will unleash the people's jaguar. What do you make of that response?
That he loves to talk about, uses those metaphors, but I think President Petro has very little weight in the region, has very little weight even in Colombia, even though he's the president, and he protects himself with that type of rhetoric. The reality is that the drug traffickers in Colombia are having the best 4 years of their life, and are becoming a big threat. Which I think, in that sense, President Trump is right. Drug trafficking is the biggest threat to democracy and to liberty in the region, from Mexico to the Patagonia. When you look at all these criminal organizations, how much they're moving into political control. Mexico, look at Mexico. Mm-hmm. Half of Mexico is in the hands of drug traffickers. It's very near being a narco state. They control governors, mayors. They control critical industries like the lemon industry, tomato industry, avocado industry. And what they're learning there, and they're moving, especially the Mexican drug cartels, all over Latin America, and that type of working through the political system, the traditional economic system, is something that they're learning and they're living all over. So for sure, I think today, that's the biggest threat that we have to democracy, and we need to really fight it with different instruments than we have fought them before, because we haven't been successful.
Well, in Venezuela, Delcy Rodriguez was sworn in as the acting president, the interim leader of Venezuela, but she reiterated her support for Nicolas Maduro. President Trump said this make things better for Venezuelans, but if it's still the same regime with different management, how much do you think that fundamentally changes things there?
Look, the difference between Nicolás Maduro and Delcy Rodriguez is like the difference between Pablo Escobar and Miguel Rodríguez Orejuela, the two biggest drug traffickers of Colombia in the 80s. They're very similar. But there's a big difference, and I think in that sense, they took a decision that has certain logic to it. When the U.S. went into, with Obama, into Libya, they took out Gaddafi, and look at what happened. When President Bush went into Iraq, they destroyed the Ba'ath Party and they destroyed the military, and look at what happened. Here they're saying, okay, you guys are gonna help us administrate this reconstruction of a state that they destroyed, and then you will probably be able to get out of here and live a life with all the richness that they have been able to get. If you don't do that, you're gonna pay a high price. So, yeah, it's not the ideal situation. It's very pragmatic, but we have to be very much, looking at step by step. Yes, today, 60 persons were detained in Valencia because they had in their cellular phones the pictures of Maduro in jail. 6 journalists near the Miraflores Palace were arrested. So if it's really going to change, it really has to change. And the first thing is we need all the political prisoners out. We need an amnesty where all of the BS charges poured against everybody are cleared and they can come back. And especially we need Maria Corina back in Venezuela so that she can start working politics and making sure that this transition is real towards a democracy and not towards a authoritarian country with parts of democracy around it.
Yeah, I mean, that remains to be seen, like whether it can go there. And certainly the president of the United States at least talked more about oil reserves than he did about, transitioning the institutions of Venezuela. But he's also made comments about Colombia, the president has, about Greenland, about Cuba. I mean, just as a final point, how worried are you about a destabilizing effect from this? Like where this could go? I just wonder what you're watching for next in terms of whether the president is true to his word and the document that they put out in November about controlling the hemisphere, what might happen next and what it could mean to your country and others around it.
Look, I think that political strategy is saying, hey, Europe, you got to take care of your Africa and your continent and Australia, Japan, Korea. You're gonna have to we're gonna help you, but I'm going to be my emphasis is going to be in Latin America with drug trafficking as the biggest threat. I think we have to understand that. I think the one who's going to be in charge of Venezuela is going to be Marco Rubio. He has that very, very clear. And I've been listening to him, and he's been very rational. He's saying, we couldn't get if we brought back Maria Corina and El Mundo, they don't have the power. They don't have the structure that could survive in such a corrupt narco state that they have been able to build. So they're being practical, and believe me, Venezuela has been a huge dose of instability for the whole region. They've put money in Brazil's elections, in Argentina elections, in Colombian elections. So any change to the Venezuelan status quo and moves it in the right direction of institutionality, security, it's a good decision. How is it going to play out? I think the Venezuelans are going to have to be on top of it, and they're going to have to do it in the streets too.
Right.
And I think all of us in Latin America that believe in liberty and believe in freedom and believe in democracy, we're going to have to be very much pushing hard for those things that I'm telling you before: freedom of political prisoners, amnesty, a new judicial system, a new electoral agency, things like that can lead us to a real election in which everybody agrees that whomever wins it really becomes the president. So that's the optimistic. The pessimistic, I don't even want to start thinking about it.
All right. Well, thank you for your optimistic take. Maybe we'll get the pessimistic one at another time, depending on how things go. Francisco Santos Calderón, former Vice President of Colombia. It was good to meet you, sir. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you very much.